The Atlanta Braves have won another series, beating Washington Nationals 3-1. Is this the best team in baseball? Let's talk about it. Yes, welcome on in to Braves Today, a production of the Believe Podcast Network and presented to you by FanDuel. I'm Lindsey Crosby, founder of BravesToday.com, a daily newsletter about the Atlanta Braves. And I want to talk about this series that just wrapped up against the Washington Nationals. 3-1 in Nationals Park. The Braves win the series. They continue to be the only team to have not lost a series in the 2026 season. And the Atlanta Braves now have a league-leading 18 wins and a run differential of plus 62, which is the best in baseball in both respects. Let's talk about what happened in the series, the pitching, the offense, and let's talk about if this really is the best team in baseball or not. And when you look at the games, I think the first thing that stands out to me is this was a high-scoring series. The lowest number of runs for the winning team in any of these four games was 7. Atlanta's win on Thursday night was 7 runs, and that was the lowest score of anybody. Atlanta wins the opener on Monday 9-4. They drop game 2 11-4. They come back and they win games 3 and 4. Wednesday is an 8-6 victory, and Thursday is a 7-2 victory. So only one of these games ended up being a saved situation. Tons of runs being scored. And when you look at Atlanta's offense, I think the key here is how they were able to respond. The Nationals got runs in the first inning in all 4 games. And Atlanta was able to come back and win the series and win 3 of those 4. Monday's game 1 with Bryce Elder on the bump. Nationals pick up 2 in the first. Braves tie it up in the top of the 4th. Nationals turn around and get another run in the bottom of the 4th. And then Atlanta puts it away with a 5 spot in the 6th inning. You look at game 2, Nationals scored 3 runs in the first and another run in the 4th. And that was the one where Atlanta's offense couldn't keep up. This was the disaster nightmare start. We're going to get to the pitching later. Ronaldo Lopez in this one, not recording out in the 2nd inning and all of that. Game 3, the Nationals put up a 4 spot on Didier Fuentes in the 1st inning. And again, they're able to come back. Atlanta gets a run in the 1st, 3 runs in the 2nd, a run in the 3rd, and 3 more runs in the 4th. And because of that, and then they use the high leverage guys in the bullpen to hold on for an 8-6 victory. And then even on game 4, the Thursday day game, the Nationals score first. They get a single run in the 1st. And I do think J.R. Ritchie giving up that home run and then stabilizing and not letting anything else happen gave Atlanta the chance. They put up 2 runs in the top of the 4th, take a 2-1 lead. Nationals tied up in the bottom half. Another solo shot off J.R. Ritchie. And then Atlanta scores 4 in the 7th to kind of put this one away, insurance run in the 9th. But when you look at the way that the Braves did this, what really makes me feel good about this is they weren't reliant on the home run. They did hit plenty of them. Don't get me wrong. 6, 7. I believe the Braves had 8 home runs in this series. They averaged 2 home runs a game. Wasn't evenly distributed. Game 1, Matt Olson has a 2-run homer in the 4th. There's two solo shots in game 2 in the losing effort. They get 4 home runs in game 3. Most of the scoring there comes off of those home runs. They score 8 runs. Baldwin's is a solo shot because every home run Baldwin's hit this year has been a solo shot. We'll get to Ronald Acuña Jr. Michael Harris has a 2-run bomb and a solo shot. Matt Olson has a 3-run homer. And then in game 4, you see the Braves pick up a solo homer in the 9th from Ozzie Albies. But it was just the ability to stack up hits. to get multiple hits and put together those big innings. And again, sometimes the home runs were part of this, but not entirely. You look at go back to game one, and I know it's been forever now. A week feels like a year sometimes. But Mike Yastrzemski, who did not have a great series, leads off getting on base via throwing error. Ronald Acuña Jr. gets hit by a pitch. This is the inning where that happened. The second time he was hit and ended up coming out of the game after this half inning here. They advance to second and third on a pass ball, and then you get a Drake Baldwin double. You get an Austin Riley walk. You get an Ozzie Albies single. You get a Michael Harris single. Dom Smith drives in Ozzie on a ground out. Like, there was no home run involved. And for me, the thing that you've seen under Tim Hires is how much better this offense looks when you're able to score and get those crooked numbers without having to rely on a 3-run homer to do it. That was the whole reason you went from Kevin Seitzer to Tim Hires. And I'm not saying that one approach is better or worse than the other, but Atlanta correctly decided that they would rather go for the higher floor, but maybe slightly lower ceiling of the Tim Hires approach versus the high ceiling of what Kevin Seitzer was doing. And we saw it in 2023, but the low floor of what Kevin Seitzer was doing, which we saw in 2024. I think it's hard to say now, a year plus into the Tim Hires move, that wasn't anything but a success. Because now you're seeing what that offense looks like when you take guys who can easily hit home runs and you have them working on getting deeper into counts, being able to draw walks if it's there, and when they get a hittable pitch in the zone, firing off an A swing and going for that home run. You're seeing what that looks like now. Game 3 had 2 different 3-run innings, and there was home runs here, but even then it wasn't necessarily always 3-run home runs. Top of the second, three runs there. Ozzie always gets on via error, in case you can't tell, the Nationals defense is not good at all. And then Michael Harris hits a homer to drive him in. But then after that, Mike Yastrzemski singles, Jonah Heim singles, which moves Yastrzemski to third, and then Ronald Acuña Jr. hits a sac fly to bring in the 3rd run. You keep going to the 4th inning, and it's Jonah Heim walks, Ronald Acuña Jr. walks, Matt Olson hits the homer. You get the homers. You're getting the homers, but you're not reliant on the homers to score runs. It happened to be in this game. We're still seeing some of the issues that we saw 10 strikeouts in Thursday's finale. I'm sorry, 10 strikeouts off of Cade Cavalli in 5 innings. The Braves struck out 15 times. And that was high for the series. Most of their other strikeouts, game 1, they struck out 6 times. Game 2, they struck out 6 times. Game 3, they struck out only once. And then game 4 was where they made up for it with the 15 strikeouts. We're still seeing the swings and misses. We're still seeing the whiffs, but it's not as bad. And you're getting those with the walks. And with, I think I've seen there's a really good job here. We've seen it from Ozzie. We've seen it from Drake Baldwin a ton. We've seen it from Austin Riley going the other way. We've seen a ton of that this week. And because of that, they're able to get runs outside of the homers. 2 significant things I want to talk about from this week. The first one, real quick, Drake Baldwin left on left. They're all small sample sizes at this point in time. Drake Baldwin has 35 at-bats left on left. He's hitting .343. He has 2 homers. Matt Olson also has 2 homers in those situations, although Matt Olson's hitting .243. But that left on left at-bat is going really well for Drake Baldwin. Mauricio Dubon, he's been struggling in this series, and the last week or so, he's still hitting .313 against lefties, which we talked about. That was his strength. That's what he was doing. The other part of this, the other thing I want to talk about, is we saw Michael Harris leave Thursday's game with what the team called left quad tightness. And a little bit concerning. He ran the bases. He felt it on the double that he hit in the I think it was the top of the 7th inning. And so they pulled him after the inning for precautionary reasons. He talked to the media afterwards. He said he thinks he'll be fine and he expects to play on Friday. I've got a clip of that real quick. Thanks to Mark Bowman of MLB.com for making this available.
Are you feeling all right? Is it just precautionary?
Yeah, it was like a little tightness. I didn't want to like have to go later in the game and have to make a real jump and make it worse. So still early in the season, I guess we had a lead right there. So kind of precaution.
Do you feel like you're playing maybe some?
When he talks about having to make a real jump, he's talking about playing outfield defense. There's a difference, and what he's referring to is there's a difference in having to ramp it up to 100 to go get a ball in a gap and being able to jog over to catch a lazy fly ball that's 15 feet to your left. And so he's talking about he didn't want to run the risk of having to fire off of that leg to go get a ball in the gap, have a full speed jump and a sprint and injure it more. He's right. He's perfectly right. It's early in the season. You had a lead. Go ahead. He also had just batted, so that was fine. Atlanta does the shuffling here, and it's great that you're able to do this. They send Eli White, who had pinch hit for Mike Yastrzemski. They put Eli White from left to center. They move Mauricio Dubon from shortstop to left field, and they send in Jorge Mateo to play shortstop. In just a minute, let's talk about the pitching in this series. There was some good, there was some bad. It was a mixed bag, but ultimately you should be hopeful about how this went. We'll talk about that next, right here on Braves Today. Atlanta's pitching in this series is not the reason that you won. And they weren't necessarily terrible, right? But game 2 was pretty awful. And in every single game, Nationals hitters, the top of the order, jumped on the Braves early, and the Braves starters had to regroup. Sometimes they didn't. Bryce Elder in game 1, 6 2/3, 4 runs, 3 were earned on 3 hits, 2 walks, 6 strikeouts. Like I said, he gave up 2 runs in the top of the 1st inning. This is something where he got to 2 outs, and then Brady House hit a single, which happens. He left a slider at the very bottom of the zone. I honestly don't think it's a terrible location. He had gone to that exact location for the first strike of the at-bat. So it was another pitch in the exact same spot, just 2 pitches later. Still a good piece of hitting by Brady House. And then you saw the walks. C.J. Abrams walks on 4 pitches, not competitive. Dalen Lyle walks on 4 pitches. I'm sorry, he walks on 6 pitches. None of them were in the zone. He swung at a couple of them. He got a called strike on a cutter above the zone that would have been overturned on ABS. And he swung at some pitches in the dirt, but like not competitive pitches there. And then a single drove both those guys in. And it was 79 miles an hour. I mean, it wasn't quality contact, but Jacob Young got the ball in play the other way, got it through the right-hand side of the infield, and brought both guys in. And then Elder buckled down and got the strikeout. Again, 6 2/3, 4 runs, 3 of those were earned because there was an error in here. 3 hits, 2 walks, 6 strikeouts. Game 2 was the Ronaldo Lopez disaster start. And I don't really know any other way to describe it other than a disaster start. He gets tagged for a ton of pitches in the 1st inning. He walks James Wood to open the game. He gives up a single, which moves Wood to 3rd, and then Luis Garcia steals 2nd base. So 2 runners in scoring position, no outs. RBI single, a walk, then he walks in a run before he then gives up a single that scores another, and then he records 3 outs and 3 batters. Pop out, strike out, ground out. But when he comes back for the 2nd, leadoff home run to James Wood, and then he gives up a single to Luis Garcia, and Atlanta has to go to Jose Suarez. It's now the 2nd straight start since the Angels fight where Ronaldo Lopez has not looked like the same guy. Don't necessarily love what we're seeing, and it's hard to really know what is wrong. Like the velo was down a little bit in the chilly weather, but like less than 1 mile an hour. And everything else, for the most part, was fine. The shape of the pitches was fine. The locations weren't good. And that's kind of a thing we don't get a ton of feedback on during the game. But Ronaldo Lopez clearly didn't look great. So Jose Suarez has to go pitch 3 innings. And everybody says that, like, hey, he was the best one that pitched on Tuesday. And I'll push back on that a little bit. He does strike out 4. He doesn't allow any runs, which kind of by default made him the best pitcher that day. But he does walk 4. He uncorks a wild pitch. He also gets called for a balk. So it's not like he put up 3 hitless, scoreless, just lockdown innings. He was letting guys advance. He was putting guys on base. It just happened to work out for him. Dylan Dodd gets tagged for a run on 2 hits and a walk in his inning of work. Ian Hamilton had a terrible debut for the Braves. 3 runs on 2 hits and 2 walks in 1 inning. He was DFA'd the next day. Joel Payamps gives up 3 runs on 2 walks and a hit in the 9th. He was not DFA'd the next day. He gave up a 3-run homer to Curtis Mead there is what happened in the 9th. But still, not great day for Braves pitching at all. But you got some length out of Jose Suarez to make up for Lopez. And then game 3, because you had gone and used a long man, all of that, they call up Didier Fuentes. And I don't necessarily think I've broken down the entire outing for Fuentes. And I'm not saying I'm going to do that right here. But this was something where he was very close to getting out of this inning with no runs allowed. Leadoff single to James Wood. Leadoff single to Luis Garcia. He gets a strikeout of Brady House. He gets a strikeout of C.J. Abrams. And then Dalen Lyle just works an 8-pitch at-bat. And the issue here, and he fixed it after this, but the issue here was he didn't have faith in anything but the fastball. So he just kept going fastball. And eventually, a major league hitter is going to figure out the 4th consecutive fastball he sees and the 7th fastball of the at-bat. And that's what happens. He needed a strike. He didn't trust anything but the fastball to throw in the zone. He didn't trust that he could throw a splitter for a strike. He didn't trust he could throw a slider for a strike. So he kept throwing fastballs. He left one up and Dalen Lyle popped it. From that point on, he then gives up a single and a double, so another run scores. But then he stabilizes. He gets a strikeout of Jose Tena, and he starts going to other pitches. The strikeout of Tena to end the inning is 7 pitches. 2 of them are fastballs. Everything else is slider, and I think there's a splitter in there as well. And when he comes back out in the 2nd inning, he does walk James Wood. He, then gets him out on a ground out and then gets another strike. Like he gets out of that too. Same thing. Bunch of secondary pitches. And just not being able to make that switch for Fuentes earlier was really the issue in that 1st inning. And Jake talked about it on the postcast. I think talked about it on yesterday's show as well. If he can get out of that inning without the home run, if he can get the strikeout there, I think he goes 5 innings. Like, I think he goes 5 innings. He probably still gives up a run or 2, but it looks a lot cleaner than it did. And then when you get to game 4, J.R. Ritchie is up because you had to use Martin Perez. And I wrote about this on Today's 3 Things. I can't say enough good words about what Ritchie did in this outing. I do also at the same time want to point out that he's not a finished product, and this game very easily could have gone a lot differently. Ritchie, just like everybody else, he gets tagged for a run in the 1st inning. James Wood, the very first pitch that J.R. Ritchie throws on the mound in official game action in the majors, is a 102-mile-an-hour home run. He leaves a 4-seam fastball at 94 miles an hour, middle, and it gets tattooed by James Wood because you can't throw get-me-over fastballs in the majors. That's just not a thing that you can reliably and consistently do. They got away with it, actually. Craig Cavalli threw one to Ronald Acuña Jr. to start the game, but you're not supposed to be able to get to do that. And we'll talk about Ronald a little bit later. But from that point, he calms down. He gives up a total of 2 runs in 7 innings, 5 hits, 2 walks. He does strike out 7. The other run comes on a solo shot in the 4th. He is handling his business. He is doing these things very well. gives up, and just getting guys out consistently. That being said, it's important to point out he did all of this, 89 pitches. He got 37 swings. He got 9 whiffs. Now, it was on a lot of different stuff. He got 3 on the curveball. He got 1 on the four-seamer. He got 3 on the changeup. He got 2 on the slider. He did get ground ball outs. I think he got six ground ball outs. But the thing here is I don't necessarily know how replicable a lot of this is against other competition, right? His four-seam fastball really just didn't miss bats. Again, I mean, he had 1 whiff on the four-seam fastball. 4 of them were put into play. 2 of them were hard hit balls. He gave up 8 hard hit balls in this game. 1 off the curveball, 2 off the four-seamer, 3 off of the changeup. 7 changeups put into play, by the way. 1 off the slider, 1 off the cutter. The only, and I think part of it was maybe his pitch usage. He only threw 4 sinkers all day. And I think the version of J.R. Ritchie that is probably the most sustainable at the major league level is throwing more than 4 sinkers. That's the pitch that gets the soft contact. That's the pitch that gets the ground ball contact. And when he's not throwing sinkers, he's kind of restricting himself. And really, he really was just 1 fastball shape. 24 of his 35 fastballs were four-seamers. And it's a below average shape. 14 inches of induced vertical breaks, hitting about 94 miles an hour. And they were almost all to lefties. He only threw 15 pitches to righties all day because they stacked the lineup full of lefties or switch hitters outside of Jacob Young. And that righty got 4 sinkers, 7 curveballs, 2 sliders, a four-seamer, and a changeup. But I don't necessarily think the four-seam curveball changeup version of J.R. Ritchie is going to be what you want in the majors. But we absolutely saw his ability to sequence, his location, the fact that you cannot rattle that kid. He just was not at all shakeable in this game. After the home run, they made a shot of him and he's smiling. And he apparently took it personally, just like Michael Jordan, and locked in from that point on. I want him to get another start. At the time of recording, this is Thursday night. We haven't gotten word on whether or not he's going to get sent back down tomorrow or if he's going to stay up and make another start. You could see a path to, if you send Carlos Carrasco down, you could move Martin Perez to the pen, and J.R. Ritchie could be that 5th starter. And then when Spencer Strider comes back, you got to figure out something. Is it the Ronaldo Lopez spot? If he continues having issues or whatever it is, we don't know. But love what I saw from J.R. Ritchie. We have to acknowledge not a finished product, but still really good. And there's clearly something you can build off here. This can be a guy, he can survive in the majors right now. And talent-wise, he's probably a better option than a guy like a Jose Suarez. Is he better than Martin Perez? I don't know. We'll see what the Braves want to do. In just a minute, let's talk about Ronald Acuña Jr. He's struggled this season. Let's see if we can figure out what's going on. We'll do that next, right here on Braves Today. Final segment of Braves Today, Lindsey Crosby. What I'm struggling with here is knowing who Ronald Acuña Jr. is as a hitter and knowing that he is one of the most talented Braves to ever put on the uniform. And it's not just me saying that. Other people are saying that. Chipper Jones has said that. Other greats of the franchise. Not best player, most talented. And so he's going to hit. He's going to be that guy that we know he can be. 2025, he ended up hitting 290 with a 935 OPS in 95 games. This year so far, he's hitting 232 with a 672 OPS. He's not the same guy yet this year. And that's frustrating for a lot of people because you see what everybody else is doing. You know, Drake Baldwin has a ton of home runs, and every single one of them is a solo shot. There's literally every single one of Drake Baldwin's homers, there's been nobody on base. And when you look at what Ronald's doing, some of this, and people hate hearing this, some of this is a little bit of bad luck or random variance not in his favor. Some of this is a little bit more issues that he hasn't always had when it comes to specific pitches. So the expected stats on StatCast, and I know there's people who don't like hearing this, but I'm going to do it anyway. Ronald's actually batting .232. His expected batting average is .272. It's a 40-point difference. That is one of the worst underperformances on the team. Like, we just have to kind of be honest here. That is one of the worst as far as batting averages go. Ozzie Albies is hitting 50 points better than his inputs should be, and he's the kind of guy who's going to do that because of the batted ball profile. He leans into the pull side power and all of that stuff. The only person who's underperforming their expected batting average worse than Ronald is Michael Harris. Michael Harris is batting .296. The expected is .341. It's absurd right now. But when you look at the power production, this is where Ronald really stands out for having some issues. The expected slug, 340. I'm sorry. The actual slug is 340. The expected, 512. He legitimately should be destroying baseballs. And he is ripping baseballs, and he's not getting the return that you're used to seeing out of it. We talked about this a little bit earlier in the year. There was some wind stuff going on, some other kind of things that he was just getting some, I'm going to say bad luck on. People hate the word luck for some reason. I'm going to say that though. But also, we're seeing some underperformances against fastballs for Ronald. Against four-seam fastballs, he has a -2 run value. Remember, run value is an accumulation stat. The more you play, the more positive or negative run value you can accumulate. When you look at it on a rate basis, per 100 pitches, he's at -1.5 per 100 pitches. It's not the worst on the team. Matt Olson's terrible against changeups, for instance. But it's not good. He's not good against four-seam fastballs. He's also not been good against sinkers. So four-seam fastballs and stats against individual pitches really suffer from small sample sizes. So don't take this as the exact kind of gospel here. He's hitting 174 on four-seam fastballs. That's not, the end of the day, the worst part of this for me. The whiff rate on four-seam fastballs is 31.8%. He is swinging and missing at the most basic fundamental pitch in the game. Frustrating. I don't know what the answer to that is. The bat speed is insanely high as always. His barrel rate is good, but the whiff rate is worse than average. And a lot of that is coming down to fastballs. Now, I will say this is an area where some of his batted balls, he's had some of that bad luck. His expected slug on four-seam fastballs is 409. His actual is 217. Now, 409 is not amazing for a slugging percentage, but it's better than what he's actually producing. So he's had a little bit of underperformance, but he's still doing poorly when it comes to four-seam fastballs. And I think more so than anything else, that's what you have to fix. Like, he's been, even cutters, he's at -1 run value per 100 pitches on cutters. So on sinkers, on cutters, on four-seamers, all of them, he's a below average hitter on fastballs. And to me, that's feels like kind of a problem because it feels like that should be the pitch that you are destroying. Some of this is sample size, mind you. I mean, he's been thrown 123 four-seamers. But like cutters, he's been throwing 61 cutters and 95 singers. So like there is sample size stuff in here. But still, the performance against those pitches so far has not been great. Hopefully he can get it going this weekend in the homestand against the Phillies. More on that tomorrow, including a special guest who's going to be joining us to preview the Friday night game on Apple TV. Real quick, because a lot of people have been interested in this, we introduced a concept a couple weeks ago called Braves imperialism. Long story, we're doing this over in the Braves Today Discord, which is free to join, by the way. Links to the episode description, links in the show notes. The way this works, in essence, is when the Braves win a series, they get to take a player from the opposing roster. And when they lose a series, that team gets to take a player from the Braves roster. This is all just a hypothetical exercise. The Braves aren't losing anybody in real life. But the Braves haven't lost a series yet this year. And so we had an opportunity to take a player from the Washington Nationals. And it was pretty unanimous in the Discord. We have a whole specific channel and everything where they have the conversations. We actually even have graphics. Friend of the show, Taylor, Braves Today contributor, actually makes a depth chart and pulls the stats on what the stats would be after every single series win. So we chose to add James Wood to the roster. And so we've made a couple different, when we played the Royals, for instance, we took Bobby Witt Jr. We've now taken James Wood from the Nationals. We took Chase DeLauder from the Guardians because at the time they weren't getting production on Mike Yastrzemski and all of that. We took Christopher Sanchez from the Phillies. We took Jose Soriano from the Angels. We took Luis Severino from the Athletics. And these are all voted on by the members of the Braves Today Discord. And so it's just really fun to kind of think about the Braves imperialism, how good this roster is for Atlanta right now. Left field is probably Chase DeLauder. James Wood is your DH. Michael Harris in center field. Ronald Acuña Jr. in right. Matt Olson at first. Ozzie Albies at second. Bobby Witt Jr. at shortstop. Austin Riley at third. Drake Baldwin behind the plate. Your rotations, Chris Sale, Jose Soriano, Christopher Sanchez, Luis Severino, and Bryce Elder. And your bullpen has Rizzo Iglesias. We're kind of ignoring the real-life injury there because that just makes it tough to make this work. Robert Suarez, Dylan Lee, Grant Holmes, Ronaldo Lopez, Tyler Kinley, Joel Payamps, Aaron Bummer. It's a lot of fun for us to kind of chat and discuss who the Braves should take. Just a little fun thought exercise, another way to find some humor and enjoyment in a long season. So if you want to participate in the conversations that we have for these, it typically starts around the last game of the series. Again, the Braves Today Discord, completely free to join. Links in the episode description, links in the show notes there on audio. And it has all the info you need. There's a whole separate channel dedicated to Braves imperialism and us talking about what players to add to the roster. We have a couple ground rules in place. If a team beats the Braves in the series, which knock on wood hasn't happened yet, the player that they take, we can't just give them somebody we don't like. We have to let them pick a player that does make legitimate sense for their roster from a skill perspective and a fit. That's why we took Bobby Witt Jr. for the opening series. That's why we took Luis Severino after the second series of the year, so on and so forth. So again, free to join. Come check it out. We have a lot of fun over there. And also, while you're checking out links in the show notes, bravestoday.store is the Braves Today merch shop. A lot of fun stuff in there. Hats, t-shirts, coffee mugs, all that good stuff. That'll do it for Braves Today for a special bonus edition on Thursday night. Sorry it's dropping so late. Again, we'll be back tomorrow to preview this Phillies series with a special guest. Very excited, first-time guest. So we'll have that coming for you in the morning. We'll still have the scouting report to preview the actual games all weekend. Until next time, this has been Braves Today.